Ballistic missiles fired by Iran streaked over the sky on their way to Israel on Tuesday, retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's Hezbollah allies in Lebanon. The missiles are seen here over the West Bank's Hebron, and in Tel Aviv with sirens blaring and air defenses intercepting the projectiles. Alarms sounded across Israel and sent people scrambling for shelter. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said the missile salvo was in retaliation for recent Israeli killings of militant leaders and aggression in Lebanon and Gaza. Israel said more than 180 missiles were launched. The attack drew vows of a sharp response from both Israel and the United States, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying Iran made a big mistake and will pay for it. The Pentagon said U.S. Navy warships helped Israel intercept the missiles. U.S. President Joe Biden said Iran's attack was, quote, ineffective.
Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
Iran's foreign ministry said its operation was defensive and was only directed at Israeli military and security facilities. No injuries were reported in Israel, but authorities in the occupied West Bank said one man was killed there. Meanwhile, in Tehran, people celebrated the bombardment. Some hoisted posters of the recently assassinated Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, locked in nearly a year of war, also celebrated as the rockets headed towards Israel. The missile strikes come after Israel said its troops launched ground raids into Lebanon, which it has described as limited. But a ground campaign into Lebanon for the first time in 18 years, pitting Israeli soldiers against Hezbollah, Iran's best armed proxy force in the Middle East, would be a major regional escalation. The Lebanese Health Ministry said more than 50 people were killed and more than 150 wounded in Israeli attacks across Lebanon on Tuesday.
Iran said its missile attacks on Israel were over early on Wednesday, barring, it says, further provocation. Iran's attack marked its biggest ever military blow against Israel. According to Israel, Iran fired more than 180 ballistic missiles on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Israel and the US promised to retaliate as fears of a wider war intensified. Washington said it would work with Israel, its longtime ally, to make sure Iran faced severe consequences for Tuesday's attacks. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on X on Wednesday, quote, "Our action is concluded unless the Israeli regime decides to invite further retaliation. In that scenario, our response will be stronger and more powerful." On Tuesday, sirens sounded across Israel and explosions rattled Jerusalem and the Jordan River Valley as the entire population was told to seek refuge in bomb shelters. Israel activated air defenses, intercepting most missiles, and Netanyahu warned Iran would pay for its actions. While no injuries were reported in Israel, one person was killed in the occupied West Bank. Iran claimed its actions were defensive and solely aimed at Israeli military facilities. Tehran said it was in response to Israeli killings of militant leaders as well as aggression in Lebanon against Hezbollah and in Gaza. Iran's military threatened vast destruction to Israeli infrastructure in the event of a response. The US later reinforced its support for Israel, with US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan calling Iran's attack ineffective.
We are proud of the actions that we've taken alongside Israel to protect and defend Israel. We have made clear that there will be consequences, severe consequences for this attack, and we will work with Israel to make that the case. Following the attack,
Israel resumed strikes on Hezbollah targets in southern Beirut suburbs, issuing new evacuation orders for the area.
The White House put pressure on US port employers Wednesday to secure a labour deal with striking dock workers. A strike by the International Longshoremen's Association, or ILA, union has blocked everything from food to automobile shipments across dozens of ports from Maine to Texas. Analysts have warned it will cost the economy billions of dollars a day. One data firm found that more than 38 container vessels were already backed up at US ports by Tuesday. That compared to just 3 on Sunday before the strike. President Joe Biden said Tuesday foreign ocean carriers have made record profits since the pandemic, when longshoremen put themselves at risk to keep ports open. He added its time workers were offered a strong and fair contract. The White House said Biden also directed his team to monitor for potential price gouging activity that benefits foreign ocean carriers. The ILA represents 45,000 port workers and launched its strike just after midnight Tuesday. They took action after negotiations with the US Maritime Alliance, or USMX, for a new 6-year contract collapsed. The USMX had offered the union a 50% wage hike, but ILA leader Harold Daggett said the union is pushing for more. He wants a $5 per hour raise for each year of the new 6-year contract and an end to port automation projects that threaten union jobs. He said the dock workers were prepared to fight as long as necessary to get the wages and protections they want. The strike is the ILA's first major stoppage since 1977 and affects 36 ports. JP Morgan analysts estimate the walkout could cost the American economy roughly $5 billion a day. The National Retail Federation called on Biden's administration to use its federal authority to halt the strike. Republicans have also called on Biden to end the strike, warning of its impact on the economy. Biden has repeatedly said he will not do so. The US Department of Agriculture said Tuesday it does not expect significant changes to food prices or availability in the near term.
Leadership is going to matter.
Democrat Tim Walz and Republican J.D. Vance went head-to-head on Tuesday. The CBS News presidential debate was the first and only one for the vice presidential nominees and the final debate before Election Day, with a little over a month to go. Compared to last month's clash between Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump, it was heavier on policy arguments and lighter on personal attacks. The two often thanked each other while clashing over the Middle East, taxes, abortion, and more.
I think you want to solve this problem. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this.
Instead, they mostly took aim at their opponents' running mates and their records. Vance launched a line of attacks that Trump had often failed to do in the last debate, taking on Harris's time in President Joe Biden's White House. That included the administration's economic record.
If Kamala Harris has such great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now. Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans.
While Walz circled back to saying Trump had prioritized billionaires over working people. He also flipped a Vance critique of immigration by attacking Trump for pressuring Republicans to kill a bipartisan border security bill earlier this year.
By standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tuesday was also the same day Iran launched missile attacks on Israel, which the U.S. and Israel have vowed to respond to, and as Israel continued its assault on southern Lebanon. The debate opened with questions about the Middle East. Walz called Trump too fickle to handle the unfolding crisis, while Vance said Trump had made the world safer during his time in office. Both candidates also tried to explain past comments that had undercut their credibility. Vance had criticized Trump ahead of the 2016 election.
But I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record.
Meanwhile, Walz was asked about news reports this week, throwing doubt on his claims he was actually in Hong Kong or China during the Tiananmen Square crackdown in June 1989. He seemed to concede he was not.
The question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this.
Both were trying to land a hard blow against the other side ahead of the looming general election on November 5th. Analysts who spoke to Reuters say history shows vice presidential debates rarely shift the polls. Harris was widely seen as the winner of her more chaotic debate with Trump. While Harris has edged ahead in national polls, voters remain evenly divided in the 7 battleground states, likely to decide November's outcome.
Every day, Pascal Mani patrols his cocoa farm in central Cameroon, armed with a machete. Rising cocoa prices, driven by global production shortfalls, have led to increased theft of the commodity in the country. Fears of thieves keeps him and other farmers awake most nights.
Early in the morning, I get up and go round. Before bed, I go round again. I often send my workers too. We try to keep strangers away from our plantations.
In the world's top growers, Ivory Coast and Ghana, beans are sold at a fixed price regulated by authorities. But in Cameroon, farmers get a higher price related to the global market. Adverse weather conditions and plant diseases in Ivory Coast and Ghana have reduced global supply and therefore driven up prices in Cameroon. And that makes cocoa a lucrative target for thieves. Farmers have been left fearing for their safety.
Le mot vol, chez nous, c'est devenu une formule.
For us, the word theft has become a catchphrase. It comes up all the time. We can never go a whole day without hearing about theft because it affects all farmers.
Tous les planteurs sont concernés.
And the threat is real. Last season, according to one police officer speaking on a condition of anonymity, 2 cocoa farmers were killed by their employees and their beans stolen. In response to the escalating theft, farmers, local authorities and buyers are now implementing measures to secure crops and supply chains. That includes refusing to buy from unregistered farmers and children. But some farmers have also taken matters into their own hands. Vigilante groups have been formed, armed with whistles, reflective jackets, machetes and spears. Others, meanwhile, have resorted to planting amulets on their farms, hoping to cast a spell on whoever tries to steal their cocoa.
The Mudeng mania is still spreading and sparking a small business boom. The baby pygmy hippo born in July at Thailand's Khao Keo Open Zoo became an internet sensation as millions of fans on social media followed her clumsily charming adventures. But now, Mudeng's also become a surprise catalyst for local entrepreneurs to make some big bucks. This Bangkok cake shop's hippo-shaped delights are a hit. Owner Chalit Kunsari said they've had more than 100 pre-orders and a surge in overall orders. That's after posting the hippo-shaped cake on social media. It went viral.
Ever since we started making the Mudeng cake, we haven't gotten any sleep because we've been sculpting cakes every day until morning, but it's also made us hundreds of thousands of baht in just 10 days.
That's more than $3,000, a lot for cake in Thailand. The country's blind box art toys market has also found an unlikely hero in Mudeng, which means bouncing pig in Thai. Blind box art toys, which are random collectibles sold hidden in a box, have become trendy. Local artist Warachai Matakit decided to capitalize on both trends.
The frenzy is a short window of profit in any SME's business. It's a benefit, and if you want to grab that window of benefit, you have to act fast and harness your creativity.
Since launching his 3D printed hippo-shaped art toy on social media, he's had over 1,000 pre-orders, bringing an income of around $4,700 within 1 week.
This portable device is designed to cool down the scalps of cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy and help them keep their hair. It's called Athena. 24-year-old student Olivia Humphreys is behind the device and just won Ireland's James Dyson Award for the prototype. She says her inspiration was her mother's own experience with chemo and scalp cooling treatment.
It came from a conversation with Mum, and we sat down and she was like, this was a really hard experience. This was a really tough thing I had to go through. Why don't you look at this?
Hair loss is a common side effect from chemotherapy. Scalp cooling is administered during treatment and can help reduce it. While traditional devices rely on refrigeration technology and often require constant power, Humphreys says Athena uses a different kind of tech.
The device is utilizing low-cost thermoelectric components to cool water that circulates around the scalp, and it's lightweight, it's portable.
Humphreys says the prototype's 3.5-hour battery life could cut down the amount of time patients spend in hospital on infusion days.
It means that a patient doesn't have to be plugged in when they're infusing in a hospital. I've kind of optimized what currently already exists.
The device still needs more development and testing, but Humphreys says she's committed to doing just that.
There's studies showing that, some women find that losing their hair is as difficult as losing a breast, It's that kind of thing. It's that extreme. Chemotherapy is the main goal. We've got to focus on, killing the cancer cells, but you've got to focus on the person that's also living in the body that the cancer cells are being killed in.